Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Well, good Tuesday morning to you, 11th day of April. Seth Harp, Harp on Sports with you here over the course of the next 60 minutes. What do we have in store for you on this edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning? Going to fly solo the first half hour. Coming up here at 8:25, Sean Kelley, voice of the Florida Gators, is going to stop by as we look at what is going to be a very busy, very pivotal week. Right? We have Florida State on the docket tonight as the Gators. It would have been the third leg, right, of this this three-game seasonal series, but with the one 2 weeks ago getting washed out in Jacksonville, this will be the second game as the Gators look to take the season series from the Noles, who just aren't very good this year. So Sean Kelley going to swing by. Also, we have the spring game on Thursday as Florida tries to figure out for the first time in a while, who's the quarterback going to be? And I'm going to address that with Sean, and I'm going to get to that coming up here momentarily as well. And, of course, baseball, softball, both in action coming up again this weekend as softball now hits the final, I can't believe we're about ready to say this, the final month of their regular season before setting its sights ahead to the SEC postseason or the SEC tournament. And, let's face it, baseball gets to the halfway point of their regular season. When it comes to SEC play as well after this upcoming weekend, is they currently sit. It's amazing that you can sit here after, a month of SEC play and be 9-3 and not even be in first or second place. So going to talk with Sean about all that and what lays out for the Gators as we go forward. Again, Seth Harp, courtesy of Titan MRI hotline, and also any Facebook questions you have for us, fire away. Facebook Live, courtesy of Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Yeah, I was thinking about this as we get ready for the spring game, and I'm going to talk more with Sean about this as well. And, of course, like I said, all your questions welcome, courtesy of Facebook Live. This is the first time I can think of going into a football season in a decade that Florida doesn't have a quote-unquote heir apparent at the position of quarterback. Here we are 48 hours away from the spring game, and I can't think of the last time there was, and I hate to use the phrase because none of it ever panned out, an anointed one. There's at least no quarterback with any controversy surrounding them. I go back a decade ago. And, whether the debate centered around something from the likes of Treon Harris, is he the right guy? Is he going to be the right guy? Then you had, we need a pocket passer. We need somebody that can throw the ball. We need somebody that can sit in there and deliver and throw the ball down the field. And it always just, Will Grier, is Will Grier the right guy? Will Grier's the right guy. This is going to work. It's going to be Will Grier. And then Felipe Franks. Oh, Felipe Franks is the guy. Oh, yeah, he's a stud. You just wait and see. He just needs to develop. Throw him out there as a true freshman, see what happens. And it was able to pivot from one thing to the next. It was quarterback here. But this guy's the right guy, and half the fan base clamped onto that guy. And then here comes another guy, Kyle Trask. Then half the fan base clamped onto him. In just the last 3 or 4 seasons, we've seen this. It went from to the point when I was on the air my first year in Gainesville. People would call in during that Gator run to the SEC championship game. The people would call and say, yeah, things are going really well right now with Kyle Trask. I get it, but we're going to be better with Emory Jones. The offense is built more for Emory Jones. And then Emory Jones, after 2 weeks, it was, hey, come on. Anthony Richardson. Let's try Anthony Richardson now. For 10 years, a decade now, this school has had a quarterback controversy. It has. It's had a quarterback controversy. And we're going into a spring game, and I ask you, who's the starting quarterback? Now, it's not a controversy where you have somebody waiting in the wings that has a tremendous amount of talent. We knew Emory Jones had a tremendous amount of talent. We knew that Anthony Richardson had a tremendous amount of talent. So you had a guy, that struggled. The only time that you had a guy waiting in the wings that didn't have more talent than the guy that was playing was Felipe Franks and Kyle Trask. Now, Kyle Trask ended up being a better quarterback, but everybody said, oh, I knew that all along. You never even saw him play. How are you just guessing? Just guessing. So when I look at this, we get into spring ball here. It's a decade now journey. It's a decade journey. And I look around the rest of the conference. Will Levis, the guy at Kentucky. Even South Carolina. Spencer Rattler, the guy. Georgia has had about 3 guys in that time frame. But even Stetson Bennett had a little bit of controversy, but that got sewn up in a hurry, and everybody, we got to get rid of Stetson Bennett, and all he does is go back out and wins another national championship. But Vanderbilt, I'm trying to think of another school in the SEC East that for the last decade has had nothing but controversy. Well, it used to say under center, but now we say in the gun. So we'll see when Sean Kelley swings by coming up here a little over 20 minutes from now. And again, it's quarterback controversy U. You used to have DBU and, linebacker U. It's QB controversy U. And whoever it's going to be, everybody's thinking one and done, right? Another one and done type of situation. Is Felipe Franks the last quarterback to start 2 opening days? I'm thinking off the top of my head here. I'm trying to think of the last Florida Gator quarterback to start opening day back-to-back years. Is it Felipe Franks? 18-19? Or it's 2023? So this can't occur until at least 2024. I think it is, isn't it? Felipe Franks is the last Gator quarterback to start back-to-back opening games, back-to-back years. All right. PodUp with Matthews in the morning, a service of Chris Doring Mortgage. They do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. That's 352-244-0840. So there you go. So at least on that front, we're talking a little Gator football coming up here. Here we are, and we start to hit the mid stage of April now. And it's God, do you want to say it's baseball season yet? Because you still have the NBA postseason is about ready to begin. And, I'm not going to delve too much into the NBA here. I know that the podcast and it's just not an NBA topic driven center. It's just not. But I thought it was fascinating when I saw the popularity of basketball and the fact that the NBA, in terms of ticket sales, in terms of consumption, is the highest it's been in 25 years. The viewership on TV, the amount of sold out arenas, it's never been higher. And the product in Orlando has never been worse. And I sit here and I look at this and, I'm not one of these guys that hops on that says this franchise needs to be sold. This franchise needs to be moved. This thing needs to be changed. But if we're going to have an honest discussion, I've always said this when it comes to things, I'll never tell you how to think ever. You think how I want to think, but here's my opinion. You like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. That's fine. I am hard pressed to find an organization that's worse in professional sports than the Orlando Magic. The one time that they landed at number 1 and got a generational 7-footer Dwight Howard, and a guy by the name of Hago Turkoglu lost his mind, and the team went to the NBA Finals. What was that, 13 years ago that happened? And I sit around and I look at this and I say to myself, I really think that the Orlando Magic maybe it's the Orlando Magic or it's the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's one of the two in terms of the worst organizations in professional sports. Can't say that about the Jaguars anymore. Can't say that about the Lions anymore. And I'm sitting here thinking as the regular season in this league comes to an end, and I was trying to rack my mind and just going up and down, hockey's its own little entity. For the longest time, the Florida Panthers didn't do anything. But I can't think of an organization that is more hopeless and helpless than the Orlando Magic in all professional sports. Isn't the Orlando Magic the Vanderbilt of the NBA? When you look at Vanderbilt in college football, that's the equivalent of being a Magic fan, is it, in the NBA? I don't. I'm just sitting here looking at this and what this organization was 30 years ago, when it had the likes of Anthony Hardaway, when it had Shaq. And then, you get lucky enough to get Dwight Howard. I was just thinking, I was trying to go through the NFL, in baseball. The only thing that I can come up with, the only organization that I can come up with that is more helpless than the Orlando Magic is the Pittsburgh Pirates. And even they just swept the Red Sox. I don't know what type of grandiose gesture that may be or what that means in the grand scheme of things. But good gracious, when you look at the popularity of the sport, and again, we're not going to do NBA predictions and playoff things, I know, but I'm just sitting here looking at this state and right down the road, zip, zero interest. Less than 2 hours away. And the Jaguars are the closest professional franchise to us in Gainesville. The second closest is the Orlando Magic. And I have yet to meet one Magic fan in my 3 years here. In my 5 years in Jacksonville, in 8 years, I don't know if I ever ran into one Magic fan. And look, it's a time to move. That's a different platform on a different scale in terms of thinking and where would you put them? And no, they're not going to move. They just build $1 billion arena. And the family that owns it is the bosses have their own printing press. So no, they're not going to go anywhere anytime soon. And that city's just growing and people go to the games apparently. When I saw the data of how popular the NBA is now, especially from 17 to 25-year-olds, it's the most popular sport. It is. 17 to 25-year-olds. It's going to be interesting when this generation gets in their 30s and that spending power increases, what that means for football and what that means for other sports. But as that sport grows, how unpopular or how unsuccessful they are in Orlando, which is brutal. I can't think of an organization that's worse. So there you go on that front. Speaking of organizations that are successful, Tampa Bay Rays, wow. 10-0, shut out the Red Sox 1-0. One streak does come to an end after 9 straight wins to start the season by 4 runs or more. They only win by 1 run on Monday night. So the Rays sit there at 10-0. It's the first team since 1987. Some 36 years ago. It's the Rays are the first organization to start a year 10-0 since 1987. And that game last night was 2 hours and 13 minutes. And now there's talk with a pitch clock. Has it sped the game up too much? So we now have this thing that everybody loves and people are taking some time to get adjusted to it. But this pitch clock that, baseball purists white-knuckled it at the steering wheel. The pitch clock is ruining the pitch clock. Okay. Baseball purists don't want to change a thing. Baseball purists don't want to change a thing. But when you bring up to those purists that baseball games in the 1960s and 70s on average lasted 2 hours and 31 minutes, 2 hours and 27 minutes, 2 hours and 16 minutes. And then now they're 3 hours and 31 minutes last year. It's like, hey, you want to, going back to 2 hours and 20 minutes is actually the purest approach. If you want to go back to the way it was, then the pitch clock to speed it up is how you get it back to the way that it was. Oh, well, I mean, shifts hit the other way. I always get a kick out of that too. Things that baseball has done. And through 10 games, I think they deserve a lot of credit. Not only what the Rays have done, but the sport in general. And is it ruined the integrity of the game? Everybody's always worried about that. It's going to ruin the integrity of the game, going to ruin the integrity of the game. The one sport that doesn't care about the integrity of the game is football. They keep adding games all the time. Think about this. The sport that's the most popular in America, football, it's the one that gives the least about the integrity of the game. It is. Add an extra game. You bet. Let's add an extra game to make some more money. What about all the records? Hey, what'd you say? College football the same way. Everybody always says, oh, the history of the game, the purity of the game. We love the game of football, the integrity of the game. You don't care about the integrity of the game. Let's add more to the college football playoff. Let's play 4 games. Let's play 8 games. Let's play 16 games. Keep adding games, baby. All the records will be shattered. All right, then. Yeah, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Just keep on plugging along. Give me more games. Give me more games. Give me more games. And, you know, once you sit around and one of the biggest mistakes that people can make, and I've said this because it's true, you look at all the data, 5% of people make 90% of the noise. So when those 5% of the people keep making 90% of the noise, you got 2 options. You either listen or you ignore them. And you listen to them, then you put stock in what those 5% say. And the whole thing about the shift, hit the other way. Yes, I want to go to a Major League Baseball game to watch Mike Trout bunt. Yeah, it's when I want to fork over $60, $70, $80 a ticket for, is to watch the premier power hitter in the league bunt because somebody decided to put their third baseman 10 feet. No. Basketball has illegal defense, right? You have different rules in different sports. You can't put 8 guys on one side of the center, and you can't use wedges. You have certain amount of alignments that you can do in football. You have alignments that you can do in basketball, and baseball shifted these things too. So through 2 weeks of the Major League Baseball season, it's been a booming success. It's been a vigorous success, and the Rays have benefited the most from this. They have. The Rays have benefited the most from the pitch clock. The Rays have benefited the most from the new rules. Why is that? It's a good question. Hey, remember, it's a 162 game haul. We're going to figure out all this stuff as time progresses and as we go forward. But as I sit here and I watch everything fold out, I absolutely love what baseball has done this year. And it goes to show you, when new rules come in and new changes come in, people throw a fit. They do. And then when you realize that life goes on and not much you can do about it, and people just adapt. Back when we didn't get worked up about too many other things, remember Facebook would change their layout. And, oh, I hate the new Facebook. Oh my God, it's awful. And then a week later, nobody cared anymore. Nobody cared anymore. I remember when Notre Dame got rid of their grass and went to turf. Oh my, it's going to ruin it. It's going to ruin the sport. Oh my gosh. Well, nobody cared. People just adjust. They pivot. We do a great job of it. Oh, they tore Yankee Stadium down. Then nobody cares. Oh my God, they ruined this. And you go, well, okay. We human beings have a great ability to adapt and to change, and baseball has proven that this year. And going into the year, you don't hear too much about the shift anymore, do you? You don't hear too many purists anymore complain about the pitch clock. Why? Because it's bringing a whole entire generation in. And has it ruined the integrity of the sport? No. Has it changed the approach? Well, you have to speed up. You have to go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. The world of sports now is fast. Think about like the Kansas City Chiefs. It's quick. It's fast. Golden State, quick and fast. Milwaukee Bucks, Boston Celtics, fast. It is. These slow, methodical teams. Look at the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry, we're going to run the ball 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You can have success. but it's fleeting. It doesn't last very long. Look at football. USC, Caleb Williams, quick, fast. Didn't end the way they wanted to, but going into the year, is there a team that's going to be more exciting in college football than Southern Cal this year? Baseball's like, okay, let's see, how do we do things? How do we shift things? How do we adjust things? It's been tremendously successful. It has been. So good for them. Again, Rays 10-0 through the first 2 weeks of the Major League Baseball season. Gonna ruin the game, huh? And I'm going to be interested to see. It's going to take about a month to get some pure data in terms of just what this has meant. And the next phase in all of this is going to be the ability to adjust to speeding up the season. And everyone, they need to cut 10 games off, gang. They're not going to cut games off. They're just not. They're playing the same amount of baseball games now that they played in 1961, right? It's like, oh, the season's too long nowadays. No, the season is the same length it's always been. Your attention span is shorter nowadays, but the season isn't any longer or any shorter than it was 62 years ago, 1961. Roger Maris, 61 and 61, right? He had 8 extra games to do it, 162. But the speed of these Major League Baseball games does bring something in to the discussion that wasn't in the discussion before, and that's double headers on weekends. You know, the first thing was to speed up the course of the game. Okay, look, through the first 2 weeks, it looks like this is going to work. Now the next pivot in all of this is what? The next discussion in all of this is, now that we've sped up the game, how do we speed up the season? So that's the next pivot in all this. How do you go from 162? Is there any way to take a season that starts April 1 and ends September 30th? Is there any way to end that sucker September 15th? Is there any way to speed it up that way? And there is. And you do it by having double headers every other weekend. And if you have games that are ending in 2.5 hours, all of a sudden a double header that begins at 1 o'clock on a Saturday, you can have a game at 1 and you have a game at 5:30, and all of a sudden it's not that bad. Now you got to talk about roster expansion and things of that nature. But baseball's first look, and if you're innovating, you're always innovating. NFL's rule changes every single year, right? The NFL's always, every year they're changing a rule. Every year. College football does the same thing. Every year football's changing rules all the time. Constantly. So, again, I like what I've seen so far out of Major League Baseball, and the Rays are proof of it. They are. Again, Seth Harp, Harp on Sports, with you here on this Tuesday. Sean Kelley, voice of the Gators, going to be joining us coming up here 5 minutes from now. PodUp with Matthews in the Morning is a service of Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and the surrounding areas. Visit Peachland Dental at peachlanddental.com and join Shane, JC, every Friday for Peachland Dentistry's JC and the QB Weekend Picks right here on PodUp with Matthews in the Morning. Remember, Peachland Dentistry is Gator Nation's #1 choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and the surrounding areas. So there you go. All righty. I know Sean Kelley is going to be joining us here in the second half of the program as we talk about a lot of the Gators stuff heading into this week. You know, you got a big series, or got a game with Florida State, then the spring game on Thursday, and then SEC play heading into the weekend as Gator baseball team continues to win series, has won every series all year long, but somehow sits with the bronze medal around their neck in the SEC, at least of right now, as we hit that halfway point after this weekend of the SEC season. So I talked to Sean Kelley about all of those things, what he saw in Tennessee, and how big of a concern is Game 3, Day 3 in the rotation with Jack Caglione on the mound and his struggles. Those things we're going to discuss with Sean and much more. Seth Harp in for Shane and the gang here on this Tuesday of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, Comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics. Live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's. Eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Hey dads and kids, join head coach Billy Napier at the Gainesville All-Pro Dad Experience, Saturday, April 22nd at 9 a.m. at the University of Florida Sanders Practice Facility and Fields. Learn fatherhood tips and participate in activities with your kids while rotating through stations on the field. It's only $25 per family, so register today at allprodad.com/events. The Gainesville All-Pro Dad Experience is brought to you by the Florida Department of Education, Dairy Council of Florida, and Tyson.
Seth Harp, Harp on Sports with you here. PodUp with Matthews in the morning, 11th day of April, 2023. What do we have in store for you? Second half of the program. Well, we bring him in right now, courtesy of our Titan MRI hotline. He is the voice of your Florida Gators, Mr. Sean Kelley. Sean, as always, man, appreciate the time. I know that I think it's the last interesting week of the, how shall I say this, of the spring season. I know we got the College World Series softball, all that, but you get Florida State, you get the spring game on Thursday, and you have big weekend series for both softball and baseball. So I wanted to bring you on, and let's start off first with baseball, since Florida State is tonight, and a big weekend series with the arch rival in Georgia. You made the trek up to Knoxville this weekend. Team continues to hit the ball out of the ballpark and put up a lot of runs, but does continue to struggle day 3 of series with starts with Jack Caglione. Anomaly, concerns, Sean, where do you sit as of right now?
With regard to Sunday starting, I would say concern at this point, and probably change on the way for the Gators when it comes to who's going to start on Sunday. Caglione just hasn't had it here the last several starts, and walks continue to be the issue. So 6 walks in the first inning against Tennessee on, I guess it'd be, I keep thinking Sunday, but this past weekend it was Saturday. But still, we're talking about the Sunday starter or the day 3 starter of a weekend series. So I would expect that Kevin O'Sullivan probably makes a change this weekend in who that third starter is. I have some guesses, but I don't know for sure what that's going to look like. And then I think that on the Caglione side of it, in this regards pitching, perhaps Jack gets himself back into a groove by making some midweek starts for the next several weeks coming ahead, because you're going to need him, frankly, as you get down the stretch of the season and we get toward the SEC tournament and then regional and super regional play. So Jack has everything that one would want in a third day weekend starter, but none of it's clicked here, altogether recently. So if you can get him right by making this change, and then give yourself a better look out of that start, over the next couple of weekends, then maybe things get right again for the Gators. Look, we're still talking about a team that's ranked third in the country, goes on the road, wins the series at Tennessee. We're nitpicking a little bit, but I am concerned, so is O'Sullivan, about who's starting right now on that third weekend day, Sundays for all intents and purposes. And so that's got to be tweaked a little bit here moving forward.
Sean, it's interesting because this team, it's the best team that Sully's had since the team won the national championship. It is, in terms of hitting, in terms of pitching, everything that they can do. But it's not only Florida, it's, the first 3 or 4 SEC series. Boy, these guys are walking a lot of guys, not just Gator pitchers, everybody. We're having series where there's 60 walks in a 3-game weekend series, 60, 65 walks. I know these guys are throwing 97, 98 now. If you can put a pinpoint on why we're seeing so many control issues here as we hit the mid stages of April, not only with the Gators, but the entire conference in the sport.
I think a lot of it has to do with how powerful the offenses have been. And that, so these guys who have great stuff, like you said, mid to upper 90s, nice breaking ball stuff. We have marquee pitchers in the conference. Obviously a couple here at Florida, Schemes over at LSU. Tennessee's got some great arms too, and so does Vanderbilt. So, but we're seeing massive numbers. Double-digit run thing is not uncommon in conference games right now, and that kind of blows me away a little bit because we do have such good pitching at the power schools in the conference right now. So, our pitchers having to be more careful around those bats, and therefore they fall behind an account, and next thing you know, it's a walk. Something along those lines, I'm not so sure I know. Now, it's a long season. It's not a major league season, but it's still a long season, and we go through cycles. So are we just in a cycle right now where those at-bats have been so explosive? We're still – I would say we're halfway through the conference schedule at this point. And I would say that some of the teams that have had great success thus far maybe haven't played the toughest schedule either. And so we've got some real knee-knocker series coming up for a lot of these teams, including Florida. And so maybe that cycle now swings a little bit as we get into the warmer months, and perhaps the head-to-head changes the dynamic a little bit too. So I guess I'm with you on control issues or lopsided games in some cases.
Here on this Tuesday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning, courtesy of the Titan MRI hotline, and also Meldon Law Facebook Live. You got a question, fire away. See if we can get to it. Courtesy of Meldon Law, the only official legal law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Thursday night's the spring game. And I like it on Thursday night, just from a programming standpoint, at least in terms of consumption. It'll get its national audience is what it'll get. It won't get lost in the shuffle of, the weekend minutia of a million Major League Baseball games and everything else, college baseball games and everything else that's going on. I was sitting here racking my brain to start the show, Sean. There's always been, at least as long as in the last decade, some sort of quarterback controversy where there's a fan favorite, there may be a coaching favorite, whether it was Treon Harris, Will Greer, all the way up Felipe Franks, Kyle Trask, and then, Emory Jones is better than Kyle Trask. And then, hey, Anthony Richardson's better than Emory Jones. And what do you know, Sean? Here we are getting ready for another spring game, and the quarterback will be this is the first time that there's not at least one guy, right, set in stone that we think is going to be the starter. So we can't have a controversy when we don't know who the starter is yet. So from your workings with Billy and in this program and where it sits today, what should we expect? I used to say under center, but in the gun for both quarterbacks this Thursday night?
Well, I think that we have just another step in the process here. And look, I'm still the new guy around here, but seemingly everybody I've talked to that's been around Florida football for even a 5 to 10 year period, let alone 15 to 20, nobody can ever remember where we were coming out of spring football without an idea of who the lead guy was. Okay, whether you agreed with that or not, we all knew kind of who the lead guy was leaving spring and heading for the summer. That's not the case right now. That's not a horrible thing. It's just it's uncommon for this program. And in this day and age of the portal and everything else, I'm not surprised by anything anymore. So here we are. So I think that you've got two guys really battling for the spot in Graham Mertz and Jack Miller. Both have run with the ones throughout spring ball. Both have taken turns kind of maybe being the lead guy in a scrimmage. They've had two of them so far. You've got young Max Brown, who has probably not inserted himself into a three-way conversation, but he has really done well this spring. He has showed well. He has shown his improvement, his growth, the young man out of Tulsa who also plays Gators baseball. But right now, I guess it's Mertz and Miller, and here we go. And so I look at Thursday night for those two guys as the closest we'll see them in a game situation. Yes, they've done scrimmages and all that. It's another evaluation tool for Billy Napier leaving spring ball and heading for the summer. The positive here is that both guys are getting reps with the ones. Handicapped in any way by fewer reps, or I don't get to run with the best receivers. They're both getting equal opportunity in this sense. And in my observations, both guys do a nice job of leading a huddle. Both guys certainly have the attention of all their teammates. Both guys, I think, have given their teammates enough to think that no matter what the choice may be this summer, we'll be okay. And so that's what I can tell you about where the two quarterbacks are right now. I personally, and others probably would have loved to sit here and have this conversation with you today and say, so-and-so jumped ahead, okay? But neither has. And again, not a bad thing, just interesting as we wrap up spring ball.
Again, Sean Kelley, voice of the Florida Gators, Seth Harp, Harp on Sports, with you here on this Tuesday, brought to you in part by Celebration Point, where Gators go to celebrate. Premium brands like Nike, International Diamond Center, Dave & Buster's, Bass Pro Shop, Regal Cinemas, Prime and Pearl, and the HBC's Restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate. It's going to be a different looking offense. It's going to be, well, I don't say mass exodus, because every year now, Sean, is going to be this way with the transfer portal and having 4-year starters. Look, that was already a thing in the past. But having guys that are going to stick around for a program, because why would you? Why would you sit around for 3 years when you can transfer and play somewhere else right away? So just from a sheer structure standpoint, not only the quarterback position, but overall, how much of a feel – I don't want to say spring games are more important than ever because it's the practice that's the most important thing, right? So how much of a feel are we going to get for the 2023 Gators that we're going to see in September, Thursday night?
Not as much as you probably want, but it's a year of transition in that sense. So not only do you have the transfer portal, you have guys that leave for the NFL draft. Those are now kind of normal things. So let's throw one more wrinkle in, and that is we're finally through the first full cycle of Billy Napier, right? And so that transfer portal is kind of exaggerated in some ways because whether it be Napier's choice or a player's choice, he inherited a lot of folks. And so after one full season with them, decisions were made. Maybe this isn't the place for you, or we're not the coaches for you, or vice versa. So it seems even more tumultuous because of that. With that being said, I would say this. You'll look at this spring football game and this body of work here over the last 6 weeks or whatever it is, 6 weeks, in that there will be some very recognizable things, and then there will be question marks heading for summertime. So here's what we know. We know Ricky Pearsall comes back, and he's leading a wide receiver room that has a new but old wide receiver coach in Billy Gonzalez. So Pearsall's there. He's looked as steady as ever in the spring. Xavier Henderson has had a great spring as well. 3 touchdown catches in last week's scrimmage. So he's in that starting mix of the wide receiver spot. Caleb Douglas is the interesting one here in that I think I saw Douglas as a nice player during the fall who kind of kept progressing, and now I see him having taken a big jump. And I've loved what I've seen from number 12 here throughout the spring practices. And then there are some question marks. Is Andy Jean ready to go? I think it's only a matter of time for that young man. I think he's going to be a superstar at wide receiver at Florida. Ada Mizell's another young wide receiver. We'll see what the future holds for him. And then you've got the Khalil Jacksons and Ty Bowmans, who they need to help in some way. How much so, I don't know. We'll see. Tight end has been riddled with injuries. So right now, I can't really even give you an evaluation of that. Keon Zipper has a devastating knee injury again, and so my heart breaks for him. Dante Zanders hasn't been able to practice a whole lot. It looks like his injury to his shoulder's not really a big deal. Jonathan Odom's coming off of knee surgery. They think he'll be ready by the regular season. So anything I see from the tight ends tomorrow, I'm not really evaluating in any way, other than there is a big boy by the name of Hayden Hansen who has caught my attention here during spring ball. Seth, he's 6'6", he's 259 pounds. He looks every bit of an SEC tight end. He can get a little stiff when it comes to catching the football, but he takes up a lot of space. So I've enjoyed watching him play. The running back room, I think we're all feeling cool about that. If you're not, then you haven't watched anything with regard to the Gators in the last 8 to 9 months. Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne lead the way in that room. By the way, there's this transfer from Tulane, number 27. When you watch him on Thursday night, I think you'll be impressed. His name is Cam Carroll. So here we are with a transfer from Wisconsin at quarterback, but yet I can't help but think that with the 3 running backs in Johnson, Etienne, and Carroll, we might look very Wisconsin-like at times, rotating 3 running backs in there and running the ball 40 times a game. So, and I'd be okay with that. The question is the offensive line, and as much as we have questions about quarterback, we also have questions about the offensive line. There are going to be new faces along that line. It's going to be really tough not having Osiris Torres out there, who will be a first-round pick here coming up probably, next week, I guess the draft is. So if that offensive line can find the right pieces and road grade for those running backs, then I think we're all going to be just fine with how this offense comes around to look. Defensively, get ready for a lot of new things, but in a good way, I think. Bigger, longer, faster, stronger up front. I think young, but more capable in the secondary too. So I think overall the defense has improved. How much so, we don't know yet. Again, it's April. And that's the biggest takeaway in all this. Ladies and gentlemen, it's April. So let's enjoy a little football on Thursday night. Let's see what we've got here heading toward the summer. But Utah is far away and not far away at the same time, but there's a lot of things that are going to have to happen for the Gators in between now and then.
Sean Kelley, voice of the Florida Gators, with us here. PodUp with Matthews in the morning. Seth Harp from HarpOnSports with you as we look ahead to what is a busy week for Gator sports. Of course, Gator baseball taking on Florida State tonight, Tuesday night, a game you'll hear on ESPN 98.1 FM 850 AM WRUF. First pitch just past 6 o'clock, pregame 5:55. Of course, Thursday night's a spring game as orange versus blue. How about that? The pregame coverage starts at 7:30, although there's not really a pregame for that. It's going to be right into it. You can hear that game as well on radio. And of course, the Georgia series this weekend when it comes to baseball as we start to look ahead. When it comes to, and I know you've been doing the rounds because I've had people calling me, asking me for your phone number. I don't give them your phone number, Sean. I give them your email address. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. But making the rounds when it comes to the draft, right? And people been, Anthony Richardson, where's this going to fit? How, and let's face it, we saw snippets of him 2 years ago, but you got a full slate of him for a full year. And when it came out that, he's thinking about entering the draft, you're like, okay, all right. And then he enters the draft, like mid to late first. And then all of a sudden it turns into mid first. And then it turns into top 10. And then it turns into top 5. And then it's, he could go number 1. It looks like that simmered down a little bit. But, oh boy, I mean, there's now this clamoring to get up to number 3, at least according to the Arizona Cardinals brass, that they've had 6 teams call up there that are interested.
Yeah.
For Anthony, there's no other quarterback that you'd come up there for because you're trying to get ahead of the Colts. So, I guess Will Levis could be one of them. Sean, when the dust settles here, I'm not going to ask where he goes. From a guy that you've seen, the offenses that he was able to produce, where do you think he fits best at the next level?
Well, as far as franchise fit, by the way, I would say I think you and I are in agreement that there's probably 4 quarterbacks in this conversation for the first 4 off the board. And all 4 are uniquely their own in a lot of ways. I can make an argument for each and every one of them. I not only did I have Anthony throughout last fall, I did Bryce Young's last game. I did the Sugar Bowl on ESPN Radio, and I watched the Bryce Young hold my beer game, as I like to call it, because he went out there at New Orleans and decided to say, by the way, before you all make your decisions about quarterback, let me show you one more thing. And it wouldn't surprise me if Bryce isn't the first overall pick when it comes to how things shake out. So with regard to Anthony, to me, I've said kind of all along that the best situation for Anthony Richardson would be to be drafted by a franchise who already has a quarterback in place. I keep using the Seattle Seahawks example, okay? So, and by the way, they could be very much in play for this situation. So they have Geno Smith. They just extended Geno. If they draft Anthony Richardson, Anthony gets to go there and learn their system, learn about being a pro quarterback, and learn from Geno. And maybe he becomes their guy in 2 years, maybe even just a year, but 2 years, let's just say that. I think that's much better for Anthony Richardson and where he is and his readiness than, say, to be drafted by a franchise that is expecting him to come in and be their starting quarterback right now, because I don't think that's healthy for that franchise, nor do I think it's healthy for Anthony. Then again, I'm the radio guy at Florida. What the heck do I know? But that's just my feel on this, because much like Florida watched Anthony have his ups and downs last season, a lot of it had to do with the fact that Anthony's starting experience was so little, and he was learning how to be a starter on the fly for all intents and purposes. All the other 3 guys in this conversation about quarterbacks are all long-established starters and have plenty of starts under their belts coming into now the next step of their career. So for Anthony, it's a couple of things. Can his accuracy improve? Yes, I think so. I think that somebody's going to be able to get with him and have more time on task with regard to how are his feet, where are his hips when he finishes his throw. And no slight to anybody here in Gainesville or a receiver that wore the orange and blue over the last year, he's going to have probably better receivers to throw to at the next level. That's just an inherent reality of moving up to the NFL where everybody is good. So the 59% or whatever it was that was his completion percentage, how much of that was Anthony's fault? A good bit. How much of that, how many drops were there that he put the ball right there, but because it's dropped, it goes against his completion percentage? And then his ability to read defenses and learn more and more about how to work through his film study, how to prepare again for that start. Other than that, Seth, he's got every physical tool you could want. Every one of them. And they're off the charts. That's why there was so much buzz around the combine. He does have a presence about him. He really is a good locker room citizen. He became a better leader as he progressed through this past season. All those things are there, and I get it. Because if I'm an NFL GM, I'm salivating and having a guy that looks like that runs better than any other quarterback in this draft, has a better arm as far as power goes, and the crazy throw goes out of this draft too. So all those things lend to Anthony's favor. I don't know really how I felt about him leaving and going to the NFL. I was like, selfishly probably bummed out because I really wanted to see what another full year would look like for him, because I thought it'd be pretty spectacular. But then again, I also had this little part of me of, is he really ready? Well, look, the guy has checked every box that is in his power during this process. And now the rest is up to which team and what situation it will be.
Sean Kelley, voice of the Gators, Seth Harp with you here on this Tuesday's edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning, courtesy of Ruse Orga State Farm Insurance office dedicated to your wants and needs when it comes to insurance, with real insurance professionals ready to help life go in the right direction with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ograinsurance.com. That's OGRAinsurance.com, or give them a call, 352-240-1779. That's 352-240-1779. Okay, so here we are. We got the draft, got Gator baseball coming up this weekend. Gator softball, wins a series, back on track, right? Back to 500 in the conference.
Gymnastics
competing for a
national championship this week. Yep.
As well. So it's one of those busy weeks. I don't want to say bummed out, but Monday's one of these Mondays where the Monday after the draft, we're gonna wake up and go, we saw baseball and softball, but we have 300 days, 3 months until kickoff. I guess is the voice of the Gators, and we obviously don't broadcast gymnastics on the radio, but throughout the course of the week, your focus, your attention, you have a spring game, which is different than any other broadcast, right? Because guys are substitute. Oh, really quick, somebody wanted to know who's doing the broadcast with you since Shane's not coming back.
Yeah, Shane has his XFL duties. So Tate Casey will be up in the booth with me, and Jeff Cardozo will be on the sidelines.
So there we go. So okay, yep. The guys just rotate.
Right.
When it comes to a week like this and pacing and putting thing out, do you just put it in fifth gear and go, Sean? Or is this one of those things where meticulous detail takes over? Because eventually you just grab ball, throw ball, right?
Yeah, well, there is that too. Let me add one more wrinkle in for you. In that I have NBA playoffs starting this week.
That's right. I forget that you're doing radio. Yeah.
Pardon me. So really, nothing lessens for me over the next 6 weeks. So I am now in this mode of I'll clear the football deck on Thursday night. But here's my schedule today. So visit with you this morning, get back to working game prep. The last football practice before the spring game is later this afternoon. So I have to get my butt over there for that. Florida State in baseball tonight. Meanwhile, tonight begins the play-in tournament for the NBA. And so, right. And then as it turns out, I will start in the East and then move west. So I will record I'll record the Laker game because I'm going to potentially have them, and I'll tell you why in a moment. The game of note for me is Atlanta-Miami tonight.
Okay.
So the winner of Atlanta-Miami gets into the field for the Eastern Conference. The loser has to play on Friday night, and that's where I'll be on Friday. So when that game is over tonight, I'll know whether I'm going to Atlanta or Miami on Friday morning. I'll call travel at ESPN and say, I got to be in said city as early as possible Friday morning. Now, if the Lakers get in tonight, if they win tonight, then they will play at Memphis on Sunday afternoon. I will go from Atlanta or Miami to Memphis for Lakers-Memphis on Sunday, okay? If the Lakers do not win tonight, they have to then play again on Friday. If the Lakers were then to win on Friday, they would go in as the 8, which means they would play at Denver on Sunday, which means that I'm going to Denver for Sunday's game. If the Lakers don't win tonight and don't win on Friday, they're out, which means then now I will go from Atlanta or Miami on Friday to then Phoenix for Sunday for the start of the Suns-Clippers series. And then I'll come home and then we'll see what's next.
Are you there? LeBron's personal play-by-play ESPN radio guy? Is that what that is?
No, but this is a little peek behind the curtain. ABC wants to have Lakers in prime time Sunday afternoon, okay? And ESPN Radio, who I'm doing this playoff run with, like I've done for a long time now, they will mirror that ABC game on Sunday. That's why the Lakers thing has such a big part of what my weekend will look like. Now, beyond that, it'll start to bounce around, and ESPN Radio and the league like to have us touch as many of the series as possible in the first round, and then the second round it'll narrow down a little bit. So, yes, between Gators football this week, baseball, and now NBA playoffs, that's kind of my juggling act at the moment.
Yeah, and you may have Trey's last game as an Atlanta Hawk. I saw that he could be traded. I mean, you're just going right into the.
Well, hold on. Let's not make huge, massive NBA news on this podcast today. All we saw, Seth, was that Hawks ownership has said anybody on this roster is tradable, transferable, and so therefore you'd have to include Trae Young. But Seth, the comment was not, we'll trade Trae Young. It was just but nobody is sacred here. Yes.
Ring. Well, our generation does ring like this. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it funny? I know you ask like my niece and nephew, hey, make a phone call. They do this.
Mm-hmm. Or
And
they don't even make a phone call. They just text.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm told that leaving a voicemail is like makes me like an 88-year-old man
anymore. It's seen as creepy. It's like, what? Okay.
I just think that's a personal touch.
I don't know.
Like if I want to leave somebody, like I think texting is impersonal. And if I were to call you, let's say you and I had something important to talk about, I would try and call and leave you a voicemail before I would text you like, hey Seth, let's talk about your life decisions. I mean, I wouldn't text that. I would want to leave a voicemail. Yep. That's just me. But
I'm by no means a prude. I had somebody apply for a job that we didn't even have a job, but applied for a job. And the email said, hey, Harp, what's up? I'm like, so you're going to apply for a job? No, we don't know each other. You don't know me like that. It's like,
okay. That's okay.
Best of luck to you, bud. Good luck. I mean, you don't need to call me Mr. Harp, but hey, Harp, what's up? Probably not the best way to apply for a job. So anyway, there you go. He is Sean Kelley, voice of the Gators. I am Seth Harp with you here on this Tuesday. Again, Gator Baseball.